Welcome back, and we are tracking a number of striking headlines this Friday night related to border security and immigration. Fair warning, some or all could amount to a giant distraction. After seeing that just the idea of it caused outrage last night, today the president confirmed he's in fact considering strongly, as he put it, busing migrants to various so-called sanctuary cities. This was first reported by the Washington Post and reported by us as well last night. Administration officials quickly said it was just a suggestion that had been floated and knocked down, rejected. That's when the president doubled down on it to threaten Democrats if they can't reach a deal on border security.
We'll bring the illegal, really you call them the illegals. I call them the illegals. They came across the border illegally. We'll bring them to sanctuary city areas and let that particular area take care of it, whether it's a state or whatever it might be. California certainly is always saying, oh, we want more people, and they want more people in their sanctuary cities. Well, we'll give them more people. We can give them a lot. We can give them an unlimited supply. And let's see if they're so happy. They say we have open arms. They're always saying they have open arms. Let's see if they have open arms. The alternative is to change the laws, and we can do it very, very quickly, very easily.
More later on the notion of using humans as punishment. Tonight, the New York Times is reporting that during his visit to California a week ago tonight, Trump urged Kevin McAleenan, the person who he was about to tap as acting Homeland Security Secretary, to close the southwestern border. No matter that days earlier, the president had pledged to delay that border closing decision for a year. According to the Times, quote, it was not clear what Mr. Trump meant by his request or his additional comment to Mr. McAleenan that he would pardon him if he encountered any legal problems as a result of taking the action, closing the border. Federal judges have already blocked the administration's attempts to limit asylum seekers who illegally enter the country, and it is not likely McAleenan would have ended up in jail if he had followed the president's directive. One of the people briefed on the conversation said it was unclear whether Trump had intended the comments to McAleenan as a joke. There's one more immigration headline today. Our own Courtney Kube and Julia Ainsley report some of Trump's advisors have discussed whether the military could be used to build and run migrant detention camps. Still with us here in our studio is Joyce Vance, and joining our conversation, the aforementioned Julia Ainsley, NBC News national security and justice reporter. And Julia, we try to keep our eye on the ball around here, and we try to call stuff for what it is. Are both of these stories, the using migrants as a political weapon, the offering a pardon as a get-out-of-jail-free card, are they both chum radio chatter, and do they both just dull down expectations?
So, Brian, I think that was a worthwhile conversation in newsrooms across Washington today. Should we keep giving air and lip service to these ideas that seem to be coming from the dark corners of a mind and of someone inside the White House, maybe the president, maybe Stephen Miller, but they're actually just meant as scare tactics, and they actually won't go anywhere? And I think the answer, and why we ultimately came down on publishing stories like these, is because this administration has been known to act on things that are not legally or logistically possible, and then they're immediately challenged by the courts, but they happen. It was the same conversation I had with my editors in February of 2017 when we heard that they were thinking about separating families at the border. It's something they went ahead with. Same thing with the idea of stopping all asylum seekers if they entered the country between legal ports of entry. They went ahead with that. It was enjoined by the courts, but they did it. And so we have to go ahead and put out this information that's being talked about. And as Courtney Kube and I reported, there was an emergency meeting at the White House on Tuesday night where they brought in officials from the Defense Department, and they talked about a plan to use troops not just to build tent cities, but also to run them, which would be in direct violation of a law that keeps the military from enforcing domestic law. They're not supposed to interact with immigrants. Right now, we know that the plan to build the 10 cities has gone further. That could end up in an agreement between DHS and DOD very soon. The plan to run them is not being operationalized yet, but it hasn't been taken off the table. None of these things have. And the president made it clear today that he, at least from a messaging standpoint, is not taking away things like busing immigrants to sanctuary cities. So at this point, all of these things hang in the balance, especially at a time where we know the president is getting rid of people who say no to him, and he's filling these positions with acting secretaries and acting administrators who say yes more often.
Joyce, last night when the idea of using migrants came out in the Washington Post, there was actual hyperventilation. Maggie Haberman's guess was that the president was watching TV and the idea sounds tough to him, and being stopped by lawyers doesn't. Emily Singer tweeted about the idea. Trump is so racist, he thinks it's punishment to send brown immigrants into someone's city. It's disgusting. On the law of it, Joyce, is it legal to do?
You know, it's an interesting question, and we wouldn't know a precise answer until we saw exactly what the president did. There's some question about whether ICE can transport people further once they've caught them. Could they actually transport them for hours? Would that be some form of lawful detention? And then there will be questions about whether, for instance, sanctuary cities have First Amendment rights and whether the president is punishing them for their exercise of those rights. But this is all very speculative. This is new. This is unplowed territory. And it's, you know, you want to say that it's dangerous for this administration, but nothing really seems to be dangerous, no matter how far Trump goes stepping on these traditional norms and rights. He never seems to be accountable.
We haven't even touched on the Posse Comitatus law, which many of us thought was a lyric to Wooly Bully. How about the legality of offering a pardon? Is that a problem?
You know, we're back, I suppose, to this issue that we've dealt with other times. But look, this story with Acting Secretary McAleenan, this is something that's different. This is the president who has, by the way, just fired his secretary, a secretary who loyally carried out everything that he asked her to in the area of separating kids from their parents. And he fired her, we are told, because she would not violate the law. Now he's got a new acting secretary, and the first thing he says to him is, I need you to violate the law for me, and if you get in trouble, I'll give you a pardon. We should all be very concerned by that.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.